Did you know that 2 out of 3 guys will experience some form of male pattern baldness by the time they turn 35? If this is starting to creep into your head, you can do something now by trying out Keeps. You can talk to a licensed doctor who will prescribe the right medication for you, then ship it out to your home discreetly every 3 months, with FDA approved versions of the medication to make it more affordable for you. Don't waste any time. Go to keeps.com/geekdom and get 50% off your first order and save your hair. One of the problems that I've had when discussing opinions about Dragon Ball on the internet has been the fact that people tend to either overthink things or not think about things enough when it comes to this little franchise called Dragon Ball, whether it be the old stuff or the new stuff. People far too often want to play follow the leader instead of actually thinking for themselves and doing themselves the service of watching the series over again, paying attention this time as adults and remembering that it's actually a little bit better than you remembered it when you were a kid. Specifically, one point I want to bring up in this video, that'll be the topic of this video as a whole, is this idea that people have where they misunderstand certain feats of characters based on singular moments or singularities. For example, I have done numerous videos about Super Saiyan 2 Gohan's power and how he was much stronger than people understand. And I think that video got through to people. I think those who watched that video when I put it out were able to understand just how powerful Gohan was during that time period, and that even Super Perfect Cell, no matter what he could do, could just not match up to a complete full power Gohan in Super Saiyan 2. And don't forget, he was able to kill Cell with one arm. But we still have people saying that Goku could have gotten the job done, even though it was stated so many times in the series he couldn't have by Goku himself. Goku had no chance against that version of Cell. And that wasn't even Super Perfect Cell. That was regular Cell. But they think that because Goku blew off half of his head, that all of a sudden that means that Goku could have beat him with the Warp Kamehameha.
That just makes no fucking sense. I mean, it's just bullshit.
Even though they fail to understand that literally just a few episodes prior to this, Vegeta also blew off half his body with the final flash, and Perfect Cell proceeded to go finish him off with one elbow drop. So does that mean that Vegeta could have secretly beaten Cell? Do people not think when they say these things? And the truthful answer is no. People oftentimes don't think enough about what they're saying, but they get into debates with somebody like me, and then when I make them look stupid, it becomes this victim card playing bullshit where I get labeled as somebody who's egotistical and whatnot. I've heard that so many times throughout the years. Not so much recently. And granted, maybe when I first started doing YouTube in the first couple years, maybe I was a little out of control, but I've changed a lot since then, and I've grown up a lot. So I'll admit that about myself. But if I'm going to hear that from somebody who I trust and respect, it's different than hearing it from somebody who just lost a debate to me on Facebook or on Twitter about Dragon Ball. Somebody who comes in to a gunfight with a knife. Don't come into a debate with me about Dragon Ball and expect to win unless you know what the hell you're talking about. And I'm not a power scaler, but I've proven for the past 6 years that I know what the fuck I'm talking about. The problem is that everybody wants to be a power scaler, but people look at everything so one-dimensionally, and they don't look at the different factors and variables that go into actual power scaling and actual study of the narrative of the series, not just the scaling part, but the actual narrative of the story and what's being told. And they oftentimes try to use these straw man arguments to make their point make sense when literally anybody with a functioning human brain can debunk it literally in seconds. It's kind of frustrating, to be honest, which is why I don't get into many debates anymore with people, because there's no point. You can't fix stupid, you know what I mean? But luckily, most of you that follow me on this channel, you don't qualify as being this group of fan, but hopefully this video will get through to some of them, even though many of them will play the victim card again and say I'm being a dick. I'm really not being a dick. I just want you to think more. If me wanting fans to think more is a crime, then I'm guilty as charged. But back to the topic at hand. So people tend to often use what happens in a moment in the series and remove the information surrounding it, and thus removing context to try to justify their argument without looking for an actual accurate conclusion. The people who say that Goku could have killed Cell are ignoring statements from Goku himself multiple times saying he couldn't have. Context is very important when it comes to telling this story. It's the same argument that people have when they say that Trunks was stronger than Perfect Cell in their battle that they had after the fight with Vegeta, the one before the Cell games. When, as I said in my previous debunk video, that's also not true, because you can't take one manga panel out of context to justify your point when there are several other pages that prove otherwise, and I explained in that video what was going on. What this video is about is not so much power scaling, but more so about the singularities that make up one specific moment not really being relative to a power scale. For example, Krillin cut off Frieza's tail on Namek. Does that mean that Krillin is stronger than Frieza? This happened during Frieza's second form, at a fighting power of 1 million. If you are dumb enough to think this, that is the same logic you're applying to Goku's Warp Kamehameha, meaning that he's stronger than Cell. It's the same thing. He got a lucky shot. Same thing happened when Goku fought Broly in the 8th Dragon Ball Z movie. And before some moron says that's not canon, because I can smell you guys coming from a mile away with this bullshit, people who say that. Not everyone, just those who say that. It doesn't matter. It's a point that needs to be made. Obviously, Goku by himself was not stronger than Broly. But with enough force, he was able to ruthlessly punch through Broly, and with the power of the other 4 friends helping him, let's not forget that, because without that he couldn't have won. Enough to send Broly away for at least, a few years till he came back. But so many fans have argued that it was the scar, and that Broly had some kind of weak spot on his stomach that happened from when he was a kid, when he got stabbed, that Goku was able to exploit, which I also debunked on a previous edition of Dragon Ball Mythbusters right here on the channel. So we have here 2 examples of both extremes. We have one side that's taking things out of context, and we have another side that's adding more context with not enough evidence. It doesn't make any logical sense that this guy has a weak spot of a scar that he had when he was a kid, when he's a guy who's going around obliterating, parts of galaxies and things of that nature. He's annihilating planets with ease, this guy. And you're going to sit here and tell me that he has a little baby scar that Goku was able to punch and beat him with one shot? It makes no sense. It was never once talked about in any of the Takao Koyama interviews. It wasn't even brought up in the film itself or even hinted at. It's just something that fans made up to justify Broly losing that fight. Broly fans made that up, basically. I've been around this fandom a long time. I've seen where things come from and where they go. And it's just one of those things where the more and more time passes, the more I wonder about people. And I encourage people to go back and rewatch Dragon Ball again. I say this a lot. You need to rewatch it again now with grown-up eyes. Some of you guys have not seen this show since you were kids. And this is a kid's show, make no mistake. And I understood this when I was 13 years old. And it never ceases to amaze me that so many people don't as grown-ass adults. This is a very simple show to understand. But you're going to have your debates. And there's nothing wrong with having debates, but I feel like you always have to find a balance between too much context and not enough context when it comes to characters and how they're supposed to behave and how they're supposed to be. I'm reminded of the people who actually believe, not memeing or trying to be funny, who actually believe that Piccolo was more so Gohan's dad than Goku was. Those people blow my mind because, again, either they're just people who haven't seen the series in a very long time, or they misremember things, or they are just following memes created by parody groups like Team 4-Star and not realizing it's just a joke. Or they'll go on Facebook and they'll see some cringe meme or some cringe post from somebody on there on Instagram, and they'll think it's actually worthy of being discussed or worthy of being entertained when it's complete nonsense. There's so much evidence in the series that Gohan had a much closer connection to Goku and even his mother Chi-Chi than he did anybody else, with the exception of maybe Videl once they met and got married, and of course his daughter Pan, with Piccolo being the first member of not his immediate family that he cares about the most. Piccolo is more like an uncle to Gohan than a father figure. Yes, he took care of him for 1 year. Actually, less than 1 year, because if you remember, he put him onto the wild for several months. And yes, they did bond, but not to the level of Goku and Gohan, who spent much more time together. Much more time together. Not just in training, but just in casual quality time. I just want people to be better. I just want people to understand this stuff better and to appreciate it more. Because, goddamn, I love this series a lot. And I think if people watched it start to finish in Japanese and really learned these characters and learned how things worked and understood the series more, you would like it and appreciate it as much as I do. And I think a lot of you who have been watching me do. Some of you guys are getting there. Some of you guys aren't there at all. Some of you guys are new. So if you are new to the channel, subscribe if you want more content like this, because I've got lots of videos discussing my thoughts on Dragon Ball and my thoughts on fandom going forward. I don't hate the fandom. I just want them to be better in the way they analyze things, because every day I wake up and I see at least 1 or 2 cringe opinions to where the old me would jump in there and correct them, but the new me just closes the app and says, all right, I'm out of here, because the snowflakes of the world may tell you otherwise, but the reality is that when you do not have full context of something, or when you don't have any context, yes, there is such thing as a wrong opinion. Those do exist. And you can have better opinions, smarter opinions, at least more well-informed opinions if you study the material more deeply. That's what I'm here to do, but I always encourage you to do the same. I love you, take care of yourself and each other, and watch more Dragon Ball. And watch more of me right now.